Time for the Hall of Fame Spotlight as we continue the discussion. Less than 3 weeks away from the big day. Keith Costas helping us whittle through this really interesting ballot of first-time eligibles. And today, we land on David Wright, Keith.
Yep, Captain America, and I'm a little bit surprised, guys. I mean, gut instinct from me, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but right now in the tracker, just 8 of the 120 publicly known votes. That's 6.2%. So he's actually in danger of potentially falling off the ballot after just 1 year, which seems a little bit much to me. But we'll get into the case right now of what people might be looking at. You got to start with his Mets ranks because, as many people have pointed out in the past, he was sort of the Mets' answer to Derek Jeter. You think about him being drafted in 2001. They're coming off of the Subway Series. He's a first-rounder. He's got that clean-cut image, kind of similar to Derek. And for the most part, although he didn't last into his 30s, he lived up to the bill as the face of the franchise. Only Darryl Strawberry had more home runs in a Mets uniform. Only the great Tom Seaver put up more WAR than David Wright. And you think about his all-around game, guys. He was a guy that could drive in a ton of runs. He could hit for high average. And rare for a third baseman, he was a legitimate threat to run. This is the whole group of third basemen with 200-plus homers and 150 stolen bases. Wright had a couple 30-30 seasons, which is extremely rare for a third baseman. Add all that up, one of the best all-around players in the game over his 10-year peak. You take a look at these WAR leaders from 2005, his first full season, to 2014, which is when he turned 30 years old. Only that group of 5 ahead of David Wright. And if you're looking for a comparison, guys, Scott Rowland and David Wright, basically the same guy offensively through their age 30 season. Rowland probably a little bit stronger of a defender. Wright probably a little bit stronger of a base runner, better base stealer. See that bottom line there? According to the metrics, the whole thing adds up to about the same type of all-around player. The problem, obviously, for Wright, the injuries. He really didn't do much of anything after age 30, played less than 100 games due to the back and neck issues. So didn't get to compile some of those big numbers into his 30s, but at his peak over those 10 years was excellent. Guys, I say that 6.2% because we talked about Chase Utley the other day, mentioned 6.2% as what Wright is tracking out at now. Utley's at 45% to me. Now, we talked last week about how at the end of the day, it's a binary choice. People get caught up in these percentages, but that does strike me as a little bit odd that 45% for Chase Utley versus 6.2% for David Wright. Not all that different of a case in terms of really looking at a 10-year peak and not much after that.
Yeah, here's one of the numbers that you put up there on Wright that I think, for me, is powerful. It's a very small list of players that are in Cooperstown with fewer than 2,000 hits.
Yep.
Most of those guys are pre-modern era players for whom the calculus is way different. A lot of those guys are former catchers. Bill Dickey, Gil Hodges, Gabby Hartnett. Like, there aren't many players that get in with the kind of small accumulation numbers that David Wright has. Now, we live in the middle of Mets propaganda central here. So if you had this argument any place outside of our building and any place away from the Northeast, it's not going to land very favorably for David as a Hall of Famer, I'm afraid, because he's a great player for sure and an all-time Mets legend. But I just think it's going to be kind of an uphill battle for him in Cooperstown.
I agree. I mean, look, we get into this all the time. Just because you're not in the Hall of Fame does not mean you didn't have a great career.
Amen.
He had a tremendous career, and for what he meant for the Mets and what David Wright did with his career is incredible.
Yep.
And that's to be praised and to be that's awesome.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're not a great player because you're not in Cooperstown.
Yeah, no, we're not detractors at all of David Wright's. I think we're all fans of his, but the injuries cost him down the stretch. Maybe another 4 or 5 years of accumulation numbers of playing 150 a year. Maybe he gets there.
You got to get over the 2,000 hits threshold at least.
No doubt. He's another one of those guys like Adrian Gonzalez we talked about last week, guys firmly in the 2%, really hard to make a case for the 1%.